Sweat dripped from a dozen different species as they lined up in the arena. Riley Webb wiped grease off his hands with an old rag and joined the back of the line. He had been fixing broken equipment in the maintenance bay when the announcement came. All cadets were to report immediately for the bonding ceremony. No exceptions. Station Forge floated in neutral space far from any sun. Inside its metal walls, young soldiers from across the galaxy trained together. Riley had been here for 6 months now, one of only 12 humans in a facility built for thousands. Most species still saw humans as the new kids, barely worth noticing. Earth had joined the Galactic Defense Force only 3 years ago. The arena floor was covered in sand mixed with something that smelled like copper. Above, viewing platforms held instructors and senior officers. They came to watch cadets either succeed or fail. There was no middle ground in a bonding ceremony. A gate groaned open at the far end. Something massive moved in the shadows beyond. Next candidate stepped forward, announced Handler Vorik. The Helmar stood twice as tall as Riley, with 6 arms crossed over his chest. 2 of those arms had scars that looked like claw marks. A Korthan cadet strutted into the center of the arena. His scales gleamed deep purple, polished for this moment. Korthans were known across the galaxy as warriors. They came from a world of endless battles and fierce honor codes. This one looked confident, ready. The creature emerged from the darkness. Riley had seen pictures of Ravagers during training lectures, but images could not capture the reality. The beast stood on 4 legs as thick as tree trunks. Its body was covered in midnight black fur that seemed to absorb light. Rows of teeth filled a mouth that could easily bite a person in half. Yellow eyes glowed with intelligence that was almost frightening. This was Fang, the most dangerous unbonded Ravager in Academy history. The Korthan cadet raised his arms and roared. It was a challenge. The traditional way his people proved dominance. Fang tilted his head and watched. The cadet charged forward, trying to grab Fang's mane in a show of control. Fang moved faster than something that large should be able to move. One massive paw swatted the Korthan sideways. The cadet hit the arena wall with a crack that made everyone watching wince. Medical drones rushed forward to pull him out. Next candidate, a Vrelesh, stepped forward. The insectoid creature chittered in its complex language, releasing pheromones meant to establish hive hierarchy. Ravagers were supposed to respond to chemical signals. The manual said so. Fang sniffed the air once, then turned his back on the Vrelesh. Dismissal, complete and absolute. The insectoid cadet left the arena with drooping antennae, humiliated. 3 more tried. A Helmar with impressive combat scores tried to use neural suppression technology, hoping to overwhelm Fang's mind into submission. Fang smashed the device and nearly took the Helmar's arm with it. Another Korthan attempted to wound Fang first, thinking injury would make the beast more agreeable. Fang dodged every strike, then pinned the cadet to the ground and held him there until handlers pulled them apart. Riley watched each attempt and felt something twist in his chest. These cadets were treating Fang like an object to be claimed, a prize to be won. They saw a weapon, not a living being. Final candidate, Riley Webb, human. Laughter rippled through the viewing platforms. Riley ignored it and walked to the center of the arena. His boots left tracks in the sand. He stopped about 20 feet from where Fang stood watching. Up close, Fang was even larger. Scars covered the Ravager's body, marks from years of refusing handlers. This creature had been brought here as a juvenile from his homeworld, a planet called Bloodthorn, where everything wanted to kill everything else. Fang had been trained to fight, trained to kill, trained to obey, but something in him had always refused. Riley did not raise his arms. He did not roar or release any chemicals. He was tired from a double shift in maintenance, covered in machine grease, and honestly too exhausted for dramatic gestures, so he sat down, right there in the sand. Riley sat cross-legged and waited. Confused murmurs came from above. Handler Vorik leaned forward on the railing, all 6 arms gripping the metal. "Human, you must assert yourself. The Ravager will not respect weakness." Riley said nothing. He kept his breathing steady and his eyes down, not in fear, but in something else. Respect, maybe. Or just the understanding that sometimes the best thing to do was nothing at all. Fang stared at him. Those yellow eyes narrowed, studying. Then the massive beast began to move. Each step brought Fang closer. Riley could feel the arena floor shake. His heart pounded, but he kept still. This was like working with the crystal bears back on Titan, the megafauna that would tear apart anyone who showed fear or aggression. His father had taught him young, let the animal decide. Fang's hot breath washed over Riley's face. The Ravager lowered his enormous head and sniffed. Riley could see his own reflection in those glowing eyes. Seconds stretched into minutes, then Fang circled him. Once, twice, 3 times. The beast's tail swished through the sand, leaving patterns. Riley sat and breathed and waited. 10 minutes passed. The arena had gone completely silent. Even the instructors had stopped talking. Fang completed his 10th circle and stopped directly in front of Riley. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the massive Ravager dropped into a full bow. His front legs bent, his head lowered until his muzzle touched the sand. A sound came from deep in his chest, not quite a growl, more like a rumble of thunder. A voice entered Riley's mind, clear as spoken words but somehow deeper. The neural interface that connected handlers to their Ravagers had activated on its own. Alpha chosen. Riley slowly stood up. He reached out one hand and placed it on Fang's head, between those pointed ears. The fur was softer than it looked. Yeah, Riley said quietly. Partners. Above them, the arena erupted into chaos. Instructors shouted at each other. Handler Vorik's scales flushed bright red in anger or shock. Security officers activated their weapons, unsure if this was supposed to happen. But Riley and Fang ignored all of it. They stood together in the center of the arena, human and war beast. While the galaxy tried to figure out what had just happened, Commandant Cluster 7, the ancient Verlesh who ran the entire academy, leaned back in her observation seat. Her compound eyes glittered with something that might have been amusement. Interesting, she clicked softly to herself. Very interesting indeed. The isolation room had 4 metal walls and 1 small window. Riley had been counting the rivets in the ceiling for 3 hours when the door finally opened. 2 guards stood outside, both Helmer with weapons ready. You stay here until the investigation is complete, one of them said. Orders from Handler Vorik. The door sealed shut again with a hiss. Riley sat on the narrow bed and tried not to think about Fang. The bond between them was supposed to be permanent, something that could not be broken once established. But the feeling in his chest told him something was wrong. There was an emptiness there now, like a door had been slammed shut between his mind and Fang's. They had separated them immediately after the ceremony. Security officers had surrounded Riley while handlers dragged Fang away with neural restraints. The last thing Riley saw was Fang fighting against 6 handlers trying to reach him. Hours crawled past. Through the small window, Riley could see other cadets walking to classes and training sessions. Life continued normal for everyone else. For him, everything had stopped. He thought about home. Titan was one of Saturn's moons, transformed by human engineering into something barely livable. The colony there raised livestock for the inner planets. Huge animals adapted to low gravity and thin atmosphere. Riley had grown up working with void whales, massive creatures that could crush a person without meaning to. His father taught him patience. Never force an animal to trust you. His father had said once after Riley had tried to rush bonding with a new crystal bear. Fear and force make them obey, sure, but obedience is not the same as partnership. You want a partner, you show them you understand their nature. Riley had not thought about those words in years. Maybe that was why Fang chose him. Not because Riley was strong or dominant, but because he had simply waited and let Fang decide. A dull thud echoed through the walls. Then another, and another. Riley stood up and pressed his ear to the door. The sounds were rhythmic, like something heavy hitting metal repeatedly. Then came a roar that rattled the entire corridor. Fang. The emptiness in Riley's chest suddenly flooded with emotion. Rage, pain, fear. Not his own feelings, but Fang's coming through the bond with such force that Riley staggered. Something was wrong. Riley pounded on the door. Let me out. Something is happening to Fang. No response from the guards. The roaring grew louder. Riley heard shouting, the crackle of energy weapons, and then a sound that made his blood run cold. Fang was hurting himself, throwing his body against walls, anything to break free. Riley made a decision. He grabbed the small table bolted to the wall and wrenched it loose. The metal screamed but came free. He swung it at the door control panel once, twice, until sparks flew. The door hissed open halfway. Enough. The 2 guards spun around, weapons raised. Riley did not give them time to think. Growing up on Titan taught you how to move in tight spaces around dangerous animals. It also taught you how to grapple when something big tried to kill you. He ducked under the first guard's arm, grabbed the weapon hand, and twisted using the guard's own weight against him. The Helmar went down hard. The second guard fired, but Riley had already moved. He swept the guard's legs and ran. Alarms blared throughout the station. Riley followed the sound of Fang's roaring, his boots pounding on metal floors. Other cadets pressed against walls to let him pass. Security officers shouted behind him, but he did not stop. The containment wing appeared ahead. Through reinforced windows, Riley could see Fang inside a cage barely large enough to hold him. The Ravager was bleeding from wounds on his head and shoulders where he had been ramming the walls. 3 handlers lay unconscious outside the cage. Medical drones buzzed around them. Handler Vorik stood before a control panel, one hand hovering over a red button. 2 other Helmar officers flanked him. "The creature is a danger to everyone," Vorik was saying. "Euthanasia is the only option." "No," Riley shouted, every head turned toward him. Security officers caught up, grabbing his arms, but Riley kept his eyes on Vorik. "You cannot stop this, human," Vorik said coldly. "The Ravager has injured personnel. It refuses reconditioning. The bond is clearly defective." "The bond is fine," Riley said. "You are the ones hurting him. We are following protocol. Your protocol is killing him." Fang slammed into the cage wall again. Blood splattered across the floor. The emptiness Riley had felt before was now filled with Fang's terror and rage. The Ravager was not violent by nature. He was desperate. Riley stopped struggling against the guards. "Let me in there, please. Just give me 5 minutes." "Absolutely not," Vorik began. But another voice cut through the chaos. "Release the human." Commandant Cluster 7 appeared in the corridor, moving with surprising speed for someone so old. Her compound eyes reflected the emergency lights in strange patterns. The ancient Verlesh radiated authority that made even Vorik step back. "Commandant, this is highly irregular," Vorik protested. "So is bonding a Ravager that has refused every candidate for 3 years." Cluster 7 replied. "Release him. If the human fails, we proceed with euthanasia. If he succeeds, we have much to discuss." The guards let go. Riley walked toward the containment cell, his heart hammering. Vorik opened the cage door with obvious reluctance. "You have 5 minutes," the commandant said. "After that, I cannot stop protocol." Riley stepped inside. The cage door sealed behind him with a heavy clang. Fang spun to face him, lips pulled back in a snarl. Blood matted the Ravager's fur. His eyes were wild, nearly feral. This was not the same creature that had bowed in the arena. This was what handlers had tried to create. A weapon, nothing more. Riley stood still. He did not raise his hands or try to approach. He simply breathed, letting his heart rate slow, letting calm spread through his body. "I am here," he said quietly. "I did not leave you." "They took us apart," Fang's snarl faltered. His ears twitched. "I know you are scared," Riley continued. "I know this place hurts you. These walls, these restraints, all of it. You've been fighting for so long." The wildness in Fang's eyes began to fade. The Ravager took a shaky step forward, then another. Riley sat down just like he had in the arena. He opened himself to the bond, letting Fang feel everything he felt. Trust, calm, partnership. Fang crossed the remaining distance and collapsed beside Riley. The massive war beast pressed against him, trembling. Riley wrapped his arms around Fang's neck, feeling the rapid heartbeat begin to slow. Through the bond came a single thought, weak and tired. "Pack. Need pack." "You have me," Riley whispered. "Always." Outside the cage, Handler Vorik stared in disbelief. Other officers murmured to each other. Medical drones hovered, uncertain. Commandant Cluster 7 watched in silence as Riley's heartbeat synchronized with Fang's breathing. The bond was not just real. It was stronger than anything she had seen in 40 years of running the academy. She turned to Vorik. "Cancel the euthanasia order. These two stay together from now on. But the investigation is over." The commandant's voice carried absolute finality. "However, human, understand this. You have proven the bond exists. Now you must prove it can work within our military structure. One mistake, one incident, and both of you will be terminated. Are we clear?" Riley looked up from where he sat with Fang. "Crystal clear, Commandant." "Good. You begin standard training tomorrow. Do not make me regret this decision." She left, followed by most of the officers. Only Vorik remained, staring at Riley and Fang with something between anger and confusion. "This is not over," he said quietly before walking away. Riley did not care about threats. He rested his head against Fang's shoulder and let exhaustion wash over him. The Ravager rumbled softly, a sound almost like purring. They had survived the first test. But Riley suspected harder ones were coming. Training Field 7 was designed to break cadets. The gravity generator hummed at twice standard levels, making every step feel like lifting weights. Riley's legs burned after just 10 minutes of running drills. Beside him, Fang moved with surprising ease, as if the crushing weight meant nothing. Around them, other bonded pairs struggled through the same exercises. A Korthan and his Ravager worked on synchronized attacks. 3 Helmar practiced formation tactics with their beasts. None of them looked at Riley or Fang. They had made it clear that humans were not welcome in elite training. "Pathetic," called out Training Master Krill from the observation platform. The scarred Korthan veteran watched with cold eyes. "The human can barely stand, yet we are supposed to believe his bond is legitimate. Increase gravity another half level." Riley felt his knees buckle as the weight increased. Sweat poured down his face. His vision started to blur at the edges. This was beyond what humans were supposed to endure, but he kept moving. 1 foot in front of the other. Back on Titan, he had worked in equipment bays where pressure suits malfunctioned. He had carried injured workers through corridors with failing gravity. Pain was just information. You acknowledged it and kept going. Fang stayed beside him, matching his pace. Through the bond, Riley felt the Ravager's concern, but also something else. Pride, maybe? Or respect. They finished the drill dead last. Every other pair had completed it minutes earlier. Krill logged something on his datapad. Probably another failure mark next to Riley's name. The next exercise was worse. Chemical atmosphere simulation, where the air itself became toxic. Cadets wore breathing masks while their Ravagers relied on genetic adaptations. The goal was to navigate an obstacle course while the environment tried to kill you. Riley pulled on his mask and entered the chamber. Immediately his eyes began to water despite the protection. The chemicals in the air were designed to mimic the most hostile planets in known space. Most species could barely survive 5 minutes of exposure. But something strange happened. After the initial shock, Riley's body began to adjust. His breathing steadied. The burning in his lungs faded to a dull ache. He moved through the course faster than he expected, his vision clearing. He finished 3rd out of 15 pairs. Krill stared at the results like they had personally insulted him. That evening, Riley sat in the communal dining area with Fang at his feet. Other cadets gave them a wide space. He was eating something that resembled protein paste when a human woman approached his table. "Mind if I sit?" she asked. Riley recognized her from orientation. Dr. Hess, one of only 3 human instructors at the academy. She taught xenobiology and was supposedly brilliant, though Riley had never taken her classes. "Sure," he said. Dr. Hess sat across from him and pulled out a datapad. "I have been watching your training results. Fascinating." "I keep failing," Riley said. "Not sure what is fascinating about that." "That is where you are wrong. You are not failing. You are performing far better than anyone expected." She tapped the datapad, showing graphs and charts. "High gravity? Most humans collapse at 1.5 standard. You trained at 2.5 and finished. Toxic atmosphere? Average human tolerance is 4 minutes. You lasted 12, Riley frowned. Other species do better. Other species were designed for those conditions by evolution. You were not. That is what makes this interesting." Dr. Hess leaned forward. "Tell me, Riley, what do you know about Earth's classification?" "It is a garden world. Lots of water, moderate climate. Good for colonization." "Wrong." "Well, partially wrong." Dr. Hess pulled up an image of Earth from space. Earth is classified as a Class 9 deathworld by galactic standards. "Do you know what that means?" Riley shook his head. "Most sapient species evolved on Class 3 to 5 worlds. Stable climates, low gravity, predictable environments. Safe." She pulled up more images showing various alien homeworlds. They all looked like paradise planets from vacation advertisements. "Earth is not safe. Earth is a nightmare," she expanded the data. "Earth gravity is 0.98 times what we consider crushing. Your atmosphere is 21% oxygen, which is near toxic levels for most species. Your temperature swings would kill a Verlesh in hours. Your tectonic activity, your weather patterns, your predator density, all of it is off the charts." Riley stared at the numbers. He had never thought about Earth that way. It was just home. "Humans evolved as persistence predators," Dr. Hess continued. You hunted animals to exhaustion over days. Your pain tolerance is abnormally high because you needed to keep moving despite injuries. Your pattern recognition is unmatched in the galaxy because you had to track prey across vast distances. Your social cooperation developed because only groups survived Earth's dangers. She pulled up one more file. Now look at this. The image showed a planet covered in dark forests and red rivers. Bloodthorn, homeworld of the Ravagers, also a Class 9 deathworld. Similar gravity to Earth, similar atmospheric composition, similar predator density. Riley understood immediately. Fang and I are not so different. Exactly. You both come from planets that tried to kill you every single day. You both learned to survive through adaptation, intelligence, and cooperation. When Fang looked at you, he did not see a weak creature. He saw a fellow survivor. Dr. Hess smiled slightly. That is why he chose you. Ravagers recognize their own kind. Fang raised his head and looked at Dr. Hess. His tail swished once in acknowledgement. So why are you telling me this? Riley asked. Because you need to understand what you represent. The military has been trying to bond Ravagers with cadets for decades. Success rate is about 30% and most bonds are fragile, based on dominance and fear. Yours is different. Yours is based on mutual respect between apex survivors. She lowered her voice. That scares people, especially people like Training Master Krill, who built his entire identity on being the strongest warrior from the strongest species. Riley thought about how Krill had been designing exercises specifically to make him fail. He wants me gone. He wants proof that humans are weak, that your bond with Fang is a fluke. But every time you survive what should kill you, every time you adapt to impossible conditions, you prove him wrong. Dr. Hess stood up. Keep proving him wrong. The galaxy needs to see that strength comes in many forms. She left, taking her datapad with her. Riley looked down at Fang. Did you know that we are the same? Through the bond came a simple feeling. Not words exactly, but understanding. Fang had known from the first moment. He had smelled Earth on Riley's skin, the particular mix of chemicals that only came from growing up on a deathworld. He had recognized the way Riley moved, the subtle signs of someone who had learned to survive hostile environments. The choice had never been about dominance. It had been about kinship. Over the next week, word spread through the academy. Cadets started looking at Riley differently, some with new respect, others with increased hostility. The humans at the station, all 12 of them, began seeking him out. They had questions about bonding with Ravagers, about training, about whether more humans could succeed. Training Master Krill doubled down on harsh exercises. If Riley finished one, Krill designed something worse. High radiation simulation, zero gravity combat, sensory deprivation trials. Each one was meant to break the human cadet, but each one Riley survived. Not because he was stronger than other species, because he was adaptable in ways they were not. His body learned, adjusted, compensated. Fang stayed beside him through it all, the bond between them growing stronger. One morning, after a particularly brutal drill, Krill approached Riley directly. You should not be here, the Corthan said. Humans are support species. Engineers, scientists, administrators, not warriors. Riley met his gaze. Maybe you need to update your definitions of warrior. Krill's scales flushed dark with anger, but he said nothing. He walked away, leaving Riley standing in the training field. Fang rumbled softly. Through the bond came a thought. He fears what he does not understand. Riley scratched behind Fang's ears. Then I guess we give him something to fear. Around them, other cadets watched. The dynamic was shifting. Slowly, quietly, but definitely shifting. The human and his war beast were becoming something no one could ignore. The announcement came during breakfast. All cadets were to report to the main auditorium immediately. Riley finished his protein paste and headed out with Fang close behind. The corridors buzzed with speculation. Something big was happening. The auditorium held nearly 1,000 beings. Riley found a spot near the back. Fang settled on the floor beside his seat, taking up enough space that no one else sat nearby. Fine with Riley. Commandant Cluster 7 appeared on the central stage. Her ancient form moved slowly, but her voice carried through the entire space without amplification. The annual war games begin in 1 week. Teams of 5 cadets and their bonded Ravagers will compete in hostile environment simulations. The winning team receives immediate commission to elite units. Begin forming your squads. The auditorium erupted into noise. Cadets immediately started grouping up with friends and allies. Riley watched as the Korthan formed their squad in seconds, all veteran warriors who had trained together for years. The Helmar created 3 separate teams, each one looking formidable. Riley stayed seated. No one approached him. No one even looked in his direction. An hour later, he was still sitting there. The auditorium had nearly emptied. Only a handful of other cadets remained, the ones nobody wanted. The misfits and the failures. A human woman walked over. She had dark skin, sharp eyes, and carried a long-range rifle across her back. "You are Riley, right? The one with the legendary Ravager?" "That is me. Tess Okoye, Sniper Course." She jerked her thumb at the others, still sitting alone. "Looks like we are the leftovers. Want to form a team of unwanted rejects?" Riley looked at who remained. A Korthan sat by himself, younger than most, with scales that had not yet darkened to full adult coloring. A Verlesh stood in the corner, antennae drooping, separated from any hive mates, and another human, a thin man with nervous energy who kept adjusting his glasses. "Why not?" Riley said. "Cannot be worse than going solo." They gathered in a corner. Tess made introductions. "This is Gren. Got dishonored by his clan for refusing some ritual combat thing. That is Plink, kicked out of his hive for being too independent. And this nervous genius is Quinn Reeves, our engineer." Quinn nodded rapidly. "I am not bonded to a Ravager. I work with drones instead. Is that okay?" "Works for me," Riley said. Gren stood up, his juvenile Ravager beside him. The creature was smaller than Fang, barely past adolescence. "My people say I am weak for refusing to kill my own brother over an inheritance dispute. But I am still a warrior," Plink chittered softly. His Ravager was scarred badly, probably from some past injury. "My hive rejected me because I questioned their decisions. Individual thought is not valued among my kind." Tess grinned. "So we are a team of outsiders and rule breakers. I like it. What could possibly go wrong?" Everything went wrong immediately. They had 1 week to prepare. Other teams trained together smoothly, executing complex maneuvers with practiced ease. Riley's team could barely agree on which training field to use. Gren wanted to attack everything head-on, the traditional Korthan way. Tess preferred long-range tactics and stealth. Plink calculated risk factors obsessively and often froze when making decisions. Quinn fidgeted with his drones and rarely spoke up during planning sessions. Their first practice simulation was a disaster. They entered a mock combat scenario against training drones programmed to mimic enemy soldiers. Within 5 minutes, the team had scattered in 4 different directions. Gren charged straight into an ambush. Tess went off alone to find a sniper position and got flanked. Plink retreated into calculations and missed his window to act. Quinn's drones collided with each other because no one was coordinating movement. They lost in under 10 minutes. "That was terrible," Tess said afterward, wiping sweat from her face. "Agreed," Gren growled. "We fight like separate warriors, not a unit." Riley sat with Fang thinking. The problem was obvious. Everyone was trying to impose their own style on the team instead of finding a way to work together. They needed a different approach. "What if we stop trying to fight like everyone else?" Riley said. "We are not a standard military unit. We are misfits. Maybe we should fight like it." "What does that mean?" Quinn asked. "It means we stop playing by their rules. We use what makes us different, not try to copy what makes others strong." Over the next few days, Riley worked with each team member individually. He asked questions instead of giving orders. What did they see that others missed? What made them feel confident? What were they truly good at? Tess was not just a sniper. She had spent years as a pirate before joining the military. She knew how to improvise, how to turn environments into weapons, how to spot weaknesses in enemy formations. Gren had refused ritual combat, but he was not weak. He was thoughtful, someone who analyzed before striking. His Ravager was young but fast and eager to prove itself. Plink calculated everything because he was brilliant at predicting outcomes. His Ravager was scarred but experienced, a survivor who had learned to fight defensively. Quinn might not have a Ravager bond, but his drones were extensions of his own nervous energy. He could multitask in ways that would overwhelm most species. And Riley, he watched. He saw patterns. He understood when to wait and when to move. They ran the simulation again. This time, Riley started by asking a simple question. "What do you all notice about the enemy positions?" Tess pointed out weak flanks. Gren identified aggressive commanders who could be baited. Plink calculated the optimal timing for each phase of attack. Quinn spotted places where drones could create false sensor readings. They entered the simulation again. Instead of charging or scattering, they moved as a loose group. When training drones attacked, they did not meet force with force. They led enemies into traps. They faked retreats. They used the terrain in ways the programmers had not expected. Fang and the other Ravagers worked together naturally, coordinating without spoken commands. The young Ravager used speed to harass enemies. The scarred Ravager defended the flanks. Fang led ambushes with devastating precision. They won in 20 minutes. The team stared at the victory screen in disbelief. "We just beat a scenario rated for veteran units," Quinn whispered. Tess laughed. "We did not beat it the right way. We cheated using creativity." "There is no right way in real combat," Riley said. "There is only surviving." Word of their victory spread. Other teams dismissed it as luck, but Training Master Krill was not so sure. He began watching their practice sessions with narrow eyes. The day of the war games arrived. All teams gathered at the deployment bay. The environment was revealed, a simulated frontier world under siege. They had 72 hours to reach an extraction point while enemy AI hunted them. Every other team looked confident, armed with standard military tactics and proven strategies. Riley's team looked at each other. 5 misfits and their Ravagers against some of the best cadets in the galaxy. "Everyone ready?" Riley asked. "No," Quinn admitted. "But we are doing this anyway." They deployed into the simulation. The environment materialized around them, a rocky landscape with scattered ruins and dense patches of vegetation. Somewhere in this artificial world, enemy drones were already hunting. The first hour was spent simply moving and observing. Other teams rushed toward the extraction point, eager to finish fast. Riley kept his team slow and deliberate. "What do you see?" he asked as they crouched on a ridge overlooking a valley. Tess pointed to disturbed soil near a ruin. "Drone patrol passed through there less than 10 minutes ago." Gren sniffed the air. His Ravager did the same. Machinery oil on the wind. "A lot of it. Base or depot nearby." Plink calculated trajectories based on the patrol route. "If we intersect here and here, we can avoid detection entirely." Quinn sent his drones ahead, scanning for electronic signatures. "Found something. Large concentration of enemy units ahead. Every team that went straight for extraction is walking into an ambush." Riley looked at Fang. Through the bond, the Ravager sent back confidence. "Trust. We do not go around the ambush," Riley said. "We go through it, but not the way they expect." Tess grinned. "Now you are speaking my language." They spent 6 hours preparing. Not rushing, not panicking. They set traps using materials from the ruins. They mapped patrol routes. They identified which drones were commanders and which were followers. When they finally attacked, it was not an assault. It was a hunt. They wounded drones and let them retreat, tracking them back to the command hub. They used Quinn's drones to feed false information to enemy sensors. They made the AI think there were 3 teams attacking from different directions when really there was only one. The Ravagers executed ambushes with terrifying efficiency. Fang led charges that seemed reckless but were perfectly calculated. The young Ravager harassed and confused. The scarred Ravager held defensive positions that forced enemies into kill zones. When they finally reached the enemy command hub, they did not fight their way in. They collapsed it from outside using carefully placed explosives from Quinn's drones and precise shots from Tess. The extraction point was wide open after that. They reached it with 12 hours to spare, exhausted but alive. Every other team had either failed or taken massive casualties trying to fight through the ambush. Only one other team had succeeded, and they had lost 2 members doing it. Riley's team of misfits had won without a single casualty. In the observation room, Commandant Cluster 7 watched the replay. Training Master Krill stood beside her, his expression unreadable. "They did not fight like soldiers," Krill said finally. "No," the Commandant agreed. "They fought like survivors. Perhaps that is what we truly need." Victory celebration lasted exactly 1 hour before everything changed. Riley and his team received their commendations in a brief ceremony. Commandant Cluster 7 herself presented them with elite unit badges. Other cadets watched with mixed expressions of respect and jealousy. Then came the orders. Riley's team was to report for a special assignment briefing in 3 days. Standard procedure for winning teams. Nothing unusual about it except Dr. Hess pulled Riley aside as soon as the ceremony ended. "We need to talk," she said quietly. "Somewhere private." They met in an empty observation deck overlooking the stars. Fang came too, as always. The Ravager sensed tension in the air and stayed alert. Dr. Hess pulled out her datapad and checked 3 times that they were not being monitored. "I should not be telling you this. If anyone finds out, my career is over. But I cannot stay silent." "What is going on?" Riley asked. "Your War Games performance. The footage is classified at a level far higher than normal. I tried to access it for research purposes and got flagged by military intelligence. That should not happen for a training exercise," Riley frowned. "Maybe they just want to study our tactics." That is what I thought too. Until I dug deeper. She showed him a document on her datapad, heavily redacted but still readable in places. "There is a program, classified, called Apex. It has been monitoring human Ravager bonds for the past year." "Monitoring how?" "Every interaction, every training session, every psychological profile. They are collecting data on humans who successfully bond with Ravagers, looking for patterns." She scrolled through more documents. "The goal is to create dedicated Deathworld combat units, human handlers with Ravager packs deployed to the most dangerous operations across the galaxy." Riley thought about that. Sounds like good strategy. Why hide it? Because they are not looking for volunteers. They want controllable humans, people who will follow orders without question, and not ask why they are being sent on suicide missions. She pulled up Riley's own psychological profile. "Look at this. Your evaluation. They flagged you as too independent, low-authority compliance, high probability of questioning orders." The profile was detailed. Every conversation, every decision Riley had made since arriving at the academy had been analyzed. There were notes about his refusal to follow Training Master Krill's more dangerous instructions. Comments about how he led his team through questions instead of commands. "They see you as a problem," Dr. Hess continued. "You proved humans can bond with Ravagers, but you are the wrong kind of human for what they want to build. So what happens now?" She pulled up another document. "Your special assignment. It is not a reward. It is a field test. You and your team are being sent to clear hostile alien fauna from a colony world. Except the colony world is actually a military testing ground. The fauna you will be fighting is not natural." Riley read the mission brief. The planet was called Haven 6, supposedly a failed agricultural colony that had been overrun by local predators. The mission was to eliminate the threat and secure the area for resettlement. But according to Dr. Hess's files, Haven 6 was never a colony. It was a research facility where military scientists had been creating bioweapons, hybrid creatures combining Ravager genetics with other predator species. The experiments had escaped containment 6 months ago. They want to see if natural Ravagers and human handlers can defeat their engineered versions, Dr. Hess said. If you succeed, they collect data and refine the bioweapons. If you fail, they collect data and know what needs improvement. Either way, they win. And we probably die in the process. That is the assumption, yes. The mission parameters are designed to be nearly impossible. They are not expecting you to survive. They are just expecting you to provide useful information before you are killed. Riley stood up and walked to the observation window. Outside, stars stretched in every direction. Somewhere out there was Haven 6, waiting. Fang pressed against his leg. Through the bond came a question without words. "What do we do?" "I need to tell my team," Riley said. That night they gathered in Quinn's workshop. The engineer had equipment that could detect surveillance devices. After sweeping the room twice, they felt safe enough to talk. Riley explained everything Dr. Hess had told him. The Apex program, the bioweapons, the real purpose of their mission. His team listened in silence. "We refuse the mission," Gren said immediately. "We face court-martial, but we live." "They will just send another team," Tess pointed out. "And if we are court-martialed, we cannot expose what they are doing." Plink chittered nervously. "The logical solution is to accept the mission and fail to report back. Go missing. They cannot collect data if we do not provide it." "That leaves the bioweapons active," Quinn said. "They will just keep experimenting, keep creating more dangerous creatures. The problem does not go away." Riley thought about his options. Every path led somewhere bad, but one path might lead somewhere useful. "We complete the mission," he said finally, "but we document everything. Every bioweapon we encounter, every piece of evidence that this is a testing ground. We survive, we come back, and we expose Apex to everyone. That is insane, Gren said. The mission is designed to kill us. Every mission we have faced was designed to break us. We survived those too. Riley looked at each team member. I will not force anyone to come. This is volunteer only. But I am going, and Fang is going with me. Fang rumbled agreement, his tail swishing. Tess checked her rifle, running her hands over the familiar weapon. I am in. Spent too long running from fights. Time to run toward one. Gren stood up, his young Ravager beside him. My clan called me weak for choosing honor over tradition. Let me prove them wrong. Plink's antennae trembled, but he nodded. Individual thought means individual responsibility. I choose to act, Quinn adjusted his glasses. I am terrified. But you need someone to record everything, and my drones are perfect for that. So yes, I am coming. They spent the next 2 days preparing, not just weapons and supplies, but documentation. Quinn modified his drones to record continuously and store data in hidden memory banks. Tess mapped out Haven 6 using publicly available records and found dozens of discrepancies that proved it was never a real colony. Plink created backup communication protocols in case their official channels were cut. Gren trained intensively, pushing himself and his Ravager harder than ever. Riley worked with Fang, strengthening their bond. They practiced fighting together without verbal commands, relying entirely on shared instinct and trust. Dr. Hess visited one more time before they deployed. I wish I could stop this, but I have no authority and no proof that would hold up against military command. You already did what you could, Riley told her. You warned us. That matters. She handed him a small data chip. If you make it back, this contains everything I have gathered about Apex. Names, authorization codes, financial trails. Use it carefully. Riley took the chip and sealed it inside his combat gear. Deployment day arrived. Their transport ship was a standard military vessel, automated and efficient. No crew except the 5 team members and their Ravagers. That alone was suspicious. Normal deployments always had support personnel. As they entered faster-than-light travel toward Haven 6, Riley gathered his team one final time. Whatever happens down there, we stay together. We do not separate. We do not abandon each other. And we do not let them turn us into data points. We are not test subjects. We are soldiers. Remember that, they all nodded. Even Quinn, despite his shaking hands. Fang lay at Riley's feet, calm and ready. Through the bond, Riley felt the Ravager's absolute certainty. Whatever waited on Haven 6, they would face it together. The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Haven 6 appeared on the view screen. A gray planet with patches of sickly green vegetation and dark red oceans. It looked diseased. Beginning descent, the ship's AI announced. Estimated time to landing, 30 minutes. Communication relay status offline. Supply drop status delayed. Good luck. The communication going offline was expected. The delayed supplies were not. They were being cut off before they even landed. Tess checked her ammunition. So it begins. So it begins, Riley agreed. The ship descended through thick clouds. Lightning crackled around them. When they broke through the cloud layer, the surface of Haven 6 became visible. It was not a failed colony. It was a war zone. Craters pocked the landscape. Ruins of research buildings stood like broken teeth. And moving through it all were creatures that should not exist. Bioweapons. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. They looked like Ravagers, but wrong. Too many limbs. Armor plating that seemed metallic. Eyes that glowed with artificial light. They moved with mechanical precision but hunted with animal cunning. Quinn's voice was barely a whisper. We're going to die down there. Riley looked at his team. At Fang. At the other Ravagers who had trusted their handlers enough to come on this impossible mission. Maybe, Riley said. But if we do, we make sure they regret sending us. The ship touched down. The loading ramp opened, and the bioweapons began to close in from all directions. The first bioweapon attacked before they even left the ship. It came through the loading ramp like a missile, all metal claws and glowing eyes. Fang met it head-on, the two creatures colliding with a sound like thunder. Riley rolled sideways and fired his weapon. The blast caught the bioweapon in its shoulder, but the creature barely flinched. Its armor plating absorbed most of the impact. They are reinforced, Tess shouted from her position behind a cargo container. Standard weapons will not cut through that plating. More bioweapons appeared from the ruins. Riley counted 15, then stopped counting as more kept coming. They moved wrong, too fast and too coordinated. Natural predators competed with each other. These things operated like a programmed unit. Fall back to the ship, Gren roared, his young Ravager slashing at a bioweapon that had gotten too close. The ship is compromised, Quinn yelled. He was at the control panel, his fingers flying over the interface. Someone locked us out remotely. We cannot take off. Riley's mind raced. They were trapped on the ground with creatures designed to kill them. No escape, no supplies incoming, no communication with command. This was not just a test. This was an execution. But executions required the condemned to cooperate. Quinn, get your drones in the air, Riley commanded. I need eyes on everything within a kilometer. Tess, find us a defensible position. Gren, Plink, work with your Ravagers to hold the perimeter. We need 5 minutes to regroup, they moved. Not as 5 separate fighters, but as a unit, the way they had trained. The Ravagers formed a protective circle while the team retreated to a collapsed research building. Its walls were partially intact, enough to provide cover. Quinn's drones shot into the sky, their cameras feeding data directly to his datapad. I count 47 bioweapons in the immediate area, more converging from the north and east. They are hurting us. Hurting us where? Riley asked. Away from the landing site, toward the center of the facility. Tess was scanning the ruins through her rifle scope. I see gun emplacements, automated ones pointed at the research center. If we go where they want us to go, we get shredded by our own military hardware. And if we stay here, we get overwhelmed by numbers, Plink added, his calculations spilling out in rapid clicks. Probability of survival longer than 2 hours, less than 5%. Fang growled low and pressed against Riley. Through the bond came a rush of emotions. Anger at the betrayal, determination to fight, and underneath it all, trust. Fang trusted Riley to find a way. Riley looked at the tactical situation on Quinn's datapad. The bioweapons were not just attacking, they were coordinating, which meant something was controlling them. He thought about what Dr. Hess had said. These creatures combined Ravager genetics with other species. They had predator instincts but machine precision. They hunt like animals but think like programs, Riley said slowly, which means they have patterns. Predictable patterns. How does that help us? Gren asked. Because unpredictable beats predictable every time. Riley pulled up the facility map on the datapad. Quinn, can your drones hack those gun emplacements? Maybe, if I can get close enough without being detected. Good. Tess, I need you to wound some bioweapons. Not kill wound. Make them retreat. That goes against every instinct I have, but okay. Plink, calculate trajectories. If the bioweapons are hurting us toward the center, what path would they least expect us to take? The Vrelesh's antennae quivered as he processed. They expect forward movement or defensive positions. They would not expect lateral movement toward the gun emplacements themselves. Exactly. We do not go where they want us or stay where they expect us. We go somewhere they have not programmed for. The plan was insane. They would move directly toward the automated guns, using wounded bioweapons as unwitting shields. Quinn's drones would hack the gun systems and turn them against the bioweapons. Meanwhile, the team would push through to the main research facility where the control systems were likely located. It should not work. It probably would not work. But it was better than dying slowly while military observers collected data from orbit. They executed the plan in stages. Tess wounded 3 bioweapons with precise shots that disabled limbs but did not kill. The creatures retreated toward the research center, exactly as predicted. The other bioweapons followed, trying to support their damaged pack members. Riley's team moved fast, using the chaos as cover. The Ravagers ran point, their natural instincts guiding them through the ruins. When they reached the gun emplacements, Quinn's drones went to work. These systems are isolated from the main network, Quinn reported, sweat pouring down his face. But they have manual overrides. Give me 30 seconds. Those 30 seconds felt like hours. Bioweapons realized the team had broken the herding pattern and redirected. 15 of them charged directly at their position. Fang and the other Ravagers met them. This time they were not fighting defensively. They were fighting with the fury of creatures who had been betrayed, experimented on, and finally pushed too far. The bioweapons were stronger and faster. But the natural Ravagers understood something the engineered creatures did not. Pack tactics born from genuine trust, not programming. Fang led a coordinated strike that separated the bioweapons into smaller groups. The young Ravager used speed to confuse and distract. The scarred Ravager held the line with devastating defensive power. They fought like they had evolved to fight with instinct honed over millions of years. "Got it," Quinn shouted. The gun emplacements rotated and opened fire on the bioweapons. The change in battlefield dynamics was immediate. Bioweapons that had been attacking now scrambled for cover. Riley's team pushed forward, reaching the main research building. Inside, they found the control center. Rows of monitors showed different sections of the facility, and on one screen Riley saw something that made his blood boil. An orbital station. Military observers watching feeds from cameras planted across Haven 6. Recording everything. "Quinn, can you access that feed?" "Already on it." The engineer worked frantically. "And broadcasting. I am routing this to every open military channel I can find. Everyone is going to see what they tried to hide." On the monitors, the observers suddenly realized what was happening. They tried to cut the feeds, but Quinn had locked them out. The footage kept broadcasting. Bioweapons attacking cadets, automated guns pointed at the team. Evidence of genetic experiments scattered across the facility. "They are trying to destroy the evidence," Plink announced, detecting multiple incoming missiles aimed at this facility. Riley checked the tactical display. They had maybe 10 minutes before this entire area was wiped clean. The transport ship was still locked down. Even if they could reach it, they could not take off. "There has to be another way out," Tess said, searching through the facility maps. Gren found it. Emergency escape pods, designed for research personnel, located in sub-level 3. They ran. Behind them, the bioweapons had regrouped and were tearing through the facility. Ahead, the path to the escape pods was blocked by rubble and locked doors. Riley's team blasted through obstacles, no longer caring about stealth or conservation of ammunition. This was pure survival. They reached sub-level 3 with 5 minutes to spare. The escape pods were ancient but functional, designed to hold 4 people each. "We will not all fit," Quinn said, doing quick math. "The Ravagers cannot come," Gren said quietly. "The pods are too small." Riley looked at Fang. The massive war beast stared back with those intelligent yellow eyes. Through the bond came a simple message. "Go. Survive." "No," Riley said. "We do not leave them." "Riley, there is no time." Tess grabbed his arm. "If we die here, no one knows what happened. The broadcast will get buried. We have to survive to expose this." She was right. Riley knew she was right. But looking at Fang, at the trust in those eyes, felt like betrayal. Fang pushed Riley toward the escape pod with his massive head. The Ravager's thoughts came through clearly. Alpha leads. Alpha must survive to protect the pack. The young Ravager nudged Gren. The scarred Ravager did the same to Plink. All 3 Ravagers were giving the same message. They understood the mission was bigger than this moment. Riley knelt and pressed his forehead against Fang's. "I am coming back for you." "I swear it. 2 minutes," Quinn shouted. The team climbed into the escape pods. Riley took one last look at Fang before the door sealed. The Ravagers stood together, 3 war beasts facing impossible odds. The pods launched just as the missiles hit. The entire facility erupted in flames. Riley watched through the small window as Haven 6 burned below them. The pod's automated systems guided them to the nearest space lane. 6 hours later, a merchant vessel picked them up. By the time they reached civilized space, the footage Quinn had broadcast was everywhere. Every news network, every military channel, every public forum across the galaxy. The Apex program was exposed. Military officials responsible were arrested. Investigations launched into dozens of other classified projects. The footage of bioweapons attacking cadets while observers watched from orbit had sparked outrage across multiple species. But Riley barely noticed any of it. He kept thinking about Fang, left behind in the burning facility. 2 weeks after their rescue, Riley received a message. It came from Commandant Cluster 7 herself. "Report to Station Forge immediately. Bring your team." They arrived expecting punishment or more questions. Instead, the Commandant led them to a medical bay. Inside were 3 recovery tanks, and in those tanks, badly injured but alive, were Fang and the other 2 Ravagers. They survived the explosion, the Commandant explained, buried themselves in a collapsed section that shielded them from the worst of it. A rescue team went back after the facility cooled. It took 3 days to dig them out. Riley walked to Fang's tank. The Ravager's eyes opened. Through the bond, weak but present, came a feeling of joy. "You came back," the thought formed in Riley's mind. I promised, Riley whispered. The Commandant continued speaking. The Apex program has been terminated. All involved personnel are facing courts-martial, but the questions they were asking remain valid. Humans and Ravagers have a unique compatibility. That bond should be honored, not exploited. She looked at Riley's team. You have proven something important. That strength comes not from domination, but from trust, from choosing to stand together when separation would be easier. The military needs that lesson. What happens now? Riley asked. Now, you train others. Properly. With respect for both species involved. The Commandant's compound eyes glittered. Other humans are arriving at the academy. They want to bond with Ravagers, but they want to learn the right way. Your way. Will you teach them? Riley looked at his team. Tess, Gran, Plink, and Quinn. 4 people who had become a pack through shared survival. Then he looked at Fang, scarred and healing, but alive. Pack training is hard, Riley said. But worth it. Alpha teaches, came Fang's thought through the bond. Pack grows. 6 months later, Station Forge had changed. The bonding ceremonies were different now. Cadets did not try to dominate Ravagers. They learned patience. They learned to wait. They learned that true partnership meant respecting the choice of both beings involved. Success rates for bonding increased dramatically. Human Ravager teams became some of the most effective units in the Galactic Defense Force, not because they were the strongest, but because their bonds were built on genuine trust. Riley stood in the training arena watching new cadets work with young Ravagers. Fong lay beside him, fully healed, his presence a constant comfort. The bond between them had grown stronger through everything they had survived. Tess was teaching advanced tactics. Gren had reconciled with his clan, who now viewed him as a hero rather than a disappointment. Plink had formed a new hive family with other independent-minded Verlesh. Quinn ran the technical training programs, his drones demonstrating coordination techniques. They were no longer misfits or rejects. They were pioneers. A young human cadet approached Riley nervously. Sir, I am supposed to enter my bonding ceremony tomorrow. I am terrified. What if no Ravager chooses me? Riley thought about his own ceremony, about sitting in the sand covered in grease, too tired for pretense, about Fang choosing him not because of strength or dominance, but because of understanding. Do not try to be what you think they want, Riley advised. Just be honest about who you are. The right Ravager will recognize you. And if that does not work, Riley smiled. Then sit down and wait. Sometimes the best thing you can do is let them decide. The cadet nodded and walked away, still nervous but slightly more confident. Fang rumbled softly. More pack comes. Yeah, Riley agreed, scratching behind the Ravager's ears. The pack grows. They watched the training continue, human and war beast together, as the galaxy slowly learned what it meant when an alpha was truly chosen. Not through force or fear, but through trust and respect, the way it should have been from the beginning.